This is panel 3, infrastructure and innovation, which I'm chairing with a lovely group of special guests. I'm just going to very quickly introduce them, and then I'm going to ask them each to say something about their work in this field, and particularly in the context of new technology innovation, new practices that they're developing or being involved in. So I'm delighted to welcome Emily Rogers, who's the Director of Government and External Affairs for NBC Universal. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us from the USA at a different time of the day. I'm also delighted to welcome Laurent Kleindienst, the Business Development Manager for TSF Studios.
Right. Hello, Adrian.
Hi, Laurent. Nice to see you. And then we have Benoit Ruiz, Environment and Innovation Analyst for Workflowers, an independent consultancy. Benoit, are you there? Hopefully Benoit will join us in a second. And then we have Louise Smith here in the UK from Neptune Environmental Solutions. So welcome, Louise.
Hi.
So I think we're just missing Benoit, and hopefully he'll log on in a second. But because I'm conscious of time, I am going to kick off, and hopefully Benoit will pop up and we can bring him in. But not to waste the audience's opportunity to hear you all speak and for us to chat. So I'm going to go first to Emily, actually, because we touched on what large organizations, studios are doing in the keynote at the start of the day with Andy Harris, and I'm absolutely aware that NBC Universal is doing an awful lot of work in sustainability, environmental sustainability, and I think that it would be great to hear from you, because I'm absolutely conscious of the Universal's green brand. You're a member of the Sustainability Production Alliance in North America, and you are also sponsoring our very own grid project here in London. So Emily, talk to us a bit about what the kind of, in a sense, the corporate policy and strategy of NBC Universal is in this arena.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. We're very excited to partner with you on the grid project there in London. It's a great piece of innovation technology to be able to use on location. So thank you for that. Yes, we are a very large corporation. We're under Comcast, NBC Universal, and a sister company of Sky over in the UK and worldwide. And we're really excited because we're building new stages called Sky Studios Elstree.
Very exciting.
Sorry?
Very exciting.
Yes. And the goal is for it to be the most sustainable TV and production facility in Europe when it opens next year in 2022. It'll be, I think it's about 27 acres and 13 sound stages. So we'll be able to utilize it, NBC Universal, as well as Sky and our other sister companies. There will be no fossil fuels used on site, all electric vehicles. I think they're going to have rainwater harvesting, solar panels, and a whole slew of sustainable innovation and technologies. So that's very exciting. And Sky as a whole is trying to be Europe's first net carbon entertainment company, and they've pledged to be net zero carbon by 2030. And as you mentioned, NBC Universal has been a long leader in the green production space with our Green is Universal brand. Several years ago, we introduced a set of infographics on best practices for sustainable productions, both on location and on stages. And they're available publicly at greenproductionguide.com. And our overall goal, I mentioned Sky's goal, and NBC Universal has recently made the commitment to be carbon neutral by 2035 in Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions across our total global operations, which is a pretty big commitment, which we're excited about. And finally, the industry as a whole, as you mentioned, has come together and we work under something called the Sustainable Production Alliance, which is a consortium of studios and industry groups dedicated to advancing sustainability in the industry. I will probably forget all the studios that are a member, but NBC Universal is a member, Amazon, Amblin, Disney, Fox, Netflix, Viacom, Sony participant, Warner Media, the whole 9 yards, everyone's a participant. And this year, the Alliance rolled out a stage survey, and what that really was is to try to figure out and see across the world what stages, what technologies they're using, how green they are, to really get a picture of of what technologies are in place and how we can improve on that, and also really get a sense of what technologies are available for production to utilize when leasing those spaces. Realize I'm rambling quite a bit there, so I'll stop there.
No, I think that's a very good start. We'll definitely come back to you, but it sort of it provides a very good bridge. You talking about the work you're going to do on the new studios in the UK to the work that Benoit, as an independent consultant, has been doing on a variety of areas, including a very big piece of research for us for the British Film Commission, which is looking at the whole stage space issue. And so, Benoit, I'm going to lead on to you and ask you to talk a little bit about your work, because you're constantly looking at how technological innovation can accelerate sustainability and what needs to be done. So talk to us about your research and the work that you're currently engaged on.
So I'm currently working with Jeremy Pelza, Marie Smith, she's here today. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, and Gareth Kirkman on a research commissioned by the BFC about UK stage spaces and studio sustainability in UK. So key findings have already emerged from this huge research. So sustainability policy is an asset for studios. It's the new field of differentiation between studios. Sustainability is increasingly appraised by the third parties, mainly broadcasters and the public. COVID and virtual production drain the shootings towards studios instead of location. Sustainability is a technological investment and supply chain challenge. There are no quick fixes, but a wide range of low-carb solutions, 100 ones, that must be tailored to the application. Actually, low-carb solutions are still struggling to be deployed due to a lack of information, funding, and local supplier, in particular for production hub in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Today, across the European stage space landscape, sustainability initiatives are multiplying, especially in France and Germany. And according to the last Albert report, studio and stage-based narrative in UK had an impact of just under 14 tons of CO2 equivalent per hour in 2020. So if we want to stay in line with the UK path to net zero, this amount should be reduced at least by 30% in 2030. So there are huge work to accomplish, but all the technological solutions are here to do it.
And so that's that. I'm going to come back to you about that, because that actually sounded quite optimistic considering the scale of the challenge, Benoit, in terms of that. But before I do, I'm going to go again to actually someone who is to Laurent, who is actually a studio operator and is going on a journey. You are actually currently on a sustainability journey. You service the film industry. You have studios in France and Belgium, and you, in a sense, you sort of begun a sustainability journey for your own organization, but also to support production. So, Laurent, tell us about the work you're doing now.
Absolutely, Adrian, and thank you for giving us the opportunity as a French dwarf to come right behind NBC Universal and their wonderful project in Elstree with Sky. And we're actually copying you, and we're not far behind. Beware. So I have to hammer you with big numbers, like Emily did. Where TSF is one of the biggest rental houses in Europe. We actually operate studios, that is sound stages, and we have a backlot. We also rent some pretty nasty, not so sustainable equipment that we rent. That is cameras, lighting, grips. And we have also 300 trucks, I'm afraid, as well as 20 generators. So that's quite a lot of things. We're a 140 people company, and we deal, just to give you an idea, we deal with about 200 feature films and TV programs a year. And that includes about 10 to 20 international productions coming to shoot in France. Like we have Lionsgate at the moment with John Wick Chapter 4. We have David Fincher starting his latest feature as well. The first, I don't give you all these numbers to be to show off or anything. It's just to say that so you can realize TSF is at the very heart of a bigger production ecosystem, and for that reason, we think we can play a role as a hub in circulating best practices and experiences, because we see producers and productions coming all the time to us. So we can not only speak about our own story in terms of sustainability, but we can also help others to share. As you know, sound stages are a place where people meet and share. So now, if we want to talk about concrete actions to help reducing the environmental impact of filming, the first thing we did, I'm going to speak both in terms of equipment and studios because everything is linked. We are changing our range of generator trucks, which are so far mainly diesel fuel led, and that is not that easy to change 50 kilowatt up to 200 kilowatt energy generating carrier and generator and make them suddenly green. You don't do that in a blink. So we started an initiative actually with not only with Netflix, for instance, both in Hollywood, New York, and London, and that is to promote hydrogen-powered both engines and generators for trucks. So that's one example. I don't want to get too deep into details because that would be boring. I hope it's not already. Now we also do very serious R&D to also kill generators. That is to increase the capacity of bigger batteries that will progressively replace generators to do on-set lighting. We have reached 10 kilowatt capacity. We're close to reaching 30 kilo capacity, and it's getting really closer to mean something in terms of, with the LED technology, lights that need less power, we're getting closer to something much more sustainable. We promote LED technology, of course, and now I really want to thank also Joanna Garardo from Film Paris region and EcoProd as well in France, because when we were lost a few months ago, when we started this initiative, we went to her, and she was of great help to lead the way, and explain us where we could start and everything. And right now we're in a program with her to help do some waste sorting on our studios, and I really want to thank her for that, for guiding us. What is dirty? What is not so sustainable on a studio? You have food, you have general waste, you have batteries, you have packaging, solvents, painting, papers. All this is quite not so nice. But the main things is turn around wood, for instance. And cut me, Adrian, if I'm too long. But basically, it's got to do with wood, chipboard wood, for instance, that are used for floors. And we deal also with doors and window frames on construction set that needs to be dealt with after shootings. We're dealing with the wood sheets, the panels as well, installed by production design. So all these things, our initiative, it goes this way, as well as collecting painting wastes and also investigating new energies for heating sound stages. And I will finish while saying that right behind Skytree, and again, we've been spying on you a lot, thank you, we're trying to build the, second most sustainable sound stages facility in Europe. That is east of Paris, and we will open in 2023. Well, I could tell you a lot about it, but it has to do with vegetalized roofs and compact wood walls and everything. But I will stop here, and that's it.
Thank you very much.
Speaking now. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Laurent. And hopefully we're going to come back and be able to get everyone in for a few minutes of group questions. But before we do that, I want to bring in Louise Smith. Louise is an independent environmental consultancy working with major US studios and supporting their productions in their effort to reduce their carbon footprint. And of course, you work very closely with ourselves at Film London to deliver the GRID project and our net zero strategy. And you're also working with the British Film Commission to embed sustainability into our stage-based development. Again, linked to the research that Benoit is doing. So, Louise, you're very much, on the ground. You're actually working on the production. You see the production. It's a logical lead on from Laurent talking about the work he's doing in studios. So, can you talk a little bit about the work that you're engaged in, and actually about those two particular projects, the GRID project and the BSC? There's a number of comments that have come through, and Laurent already mentioned it about generators and power, and this being one of the really big areas of concern. And obviously, the GRID project is attempting to pilot a program that attempts, at least in location shooting, to tackle that. So talk to us a bit about your work generally, but about these projects specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. I do indeed wear many hats. Listening to you list them made me realize. So as far as innovation goes, I think the GRID project is a fantastic example, being led by Film London. I'm lucky enough to be a part of that, kind of as a liaison to the industry advisory group that we have. So we are essentially looking at installing electrical cabinets at the most heavily used unit bases in London, so that when the unit arrives, rather than having to bring a diesel generator to power the trailers, the caterers, what have you, they can plug straight in, completely 100% renewable electricity supply. It's metered. It can be as part of the kind of permit to arrive on that site, and we can just get rid of the need for generators at that unit base. So we're aware that that's a fixed site. That's not necessarily the set, but it is somewhere that we're bringing a lot of trailers, catering. It's something we can do. And kind of as we've been working through, so the cabinet is designed with this industry advisory group working alongside us. So we've got transport managers, unit managers, location managers, everybody who's going to interact and is the person who plugs in has had their say in how much capacity do we need, what kind of plugs do we need, So we've very much tailored it to the industry's need to make sure that it does everything they need it to do, and that you can run an enormous franchise feature from this cabinet and your unit base will be 100% covered. And we've also realized, kind of as we've gone down this journey with all of the feasibility studies, that although this won't necessarily negate the need for generators on the set, what we can do is we're transitioning more, and again, kind of thinking about the sort of innovation side of what we're talking about here. Battery technology is coming along leaps and bounds. I do a lot of work when I'm kind of working with productions with a company called Green Voltage, who have the portable electric batteries. Now, they need to be charged somewhere. So if they can run the set all day, and all you have to do is bring it back to your secure, there's usually security 24 hours a day. So if you bring your kit only as far back as your unit base and can recharge the batteries that you're using overnight. And as Laurent was mentioning, we're using a lot more LED lighting now. So the power requirements for that is so much lower that you can run quite a lot of lighting from these batteries. We can start to look at all those peripheries that we can power through battery or hybridizing generators that we now run on HVO rather than fossil fuel based diesel, with a battery, so that one clicks in when the other's kind of running low. So we're starting to kind of jigsaw together a lot of there isn't just a magical thing we can snap our fingers and say, right, no need for diesel generators anymore. That's just not the landscape we're existing in at the moment. But what we can do is start to kind of add all of these things together and reduce our need for them and power them with something that is a renewable, non-fossil fuel based fuel, but is chemically the same as diesel. So I'm really excited to be a part of the GRID project. We're now kind of just at the point of implementing, and the first kind of pilot site will be at Victoria Park in Tower Hamlets, chosen because it was based off a feasibility study of which sites are used most often. We want to make sure that if we install this thing, we get the most use out of it. We reduce the amount of diesel being used, not only the CO2 but NOx, particulate matter, all that stuff that's horrible for health, for the local residents, as well as the film crew that are working there, all will be zero. So I think it's a fantastic piece of innovation, and be very exciting when it's there and a real thing. The idea being that, then we will move to other unit bases in London and around the UK and around the world, and this kind of become a more standardized thing. I know Vancouver have already got a similar thing in place, and it works extremely well there. So yes, that's very much one of my hats. And the other side, as I kind of mentioned, is I work with I have worked with NBC Universal on several pictures, which is great. With Netflix, I've worked with Disney and Marvel before. And I'm the sort of sustainability manager. So I will liaise between the studio and the production themselves and kind of implement what the studio policies are in real time. And then kind of feed that information back, gather all of that data, put things like the carbon footprinting together, but also implement things like encouraging the gaffer and the location manager to hire vault stacks or to switch their fuel over to HVO. So it's kind of a series of practical steps that we can take that all add up to reduce our impact.
That's very helpful and interesting. And we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, which is good because I can get a kind of group question going. I mean, you've all said some very interesting things about the challenges, but the positive things that you're doing, and technological things that you're doing, the practical things that you're doing to help make production more sustainable. But I guess the question to all of you, I may start with Benoit because you're constantly looking at technology and innovation. But it's a question for all of you: is what do you think? Given the urgency, and the whole day has been about urgency and how we can't afford to sit on our hands, but we have to expedite, we have to move at speed. What do you think we can have the greatest impact on in the short and medium terms? What's going to be the biggest agent for change in that sense? But Benoit, from your perspective, surveying the landscape, what do you think the greatest impact could be in the shortest term?
In the shortest term, as you said, everything is about the pace because we have only 9 years left to stay under 1.5 degrees of global warming. I think the faster thing is to switch from location shooting to studio shooting, because it will reduce transportation, it will reduce fossil fuel, even if genset run on HVO thanks to electrical cabinet. In the last Albert report, it showed that there is a decrease, in fact, of the average carbon footprint of shootings, thanks to two things: the reduction of transportation, especially by internal flights, and turning to studio shooting instead of location. So until we have a standard of electrical cabinet all over UK, it will be better for the environmental footprint to go shooting on studio. And I would like to say in France, in fact, it's a pretty common standard to have electrical cabinet in location. So it's a huge task for the UK industry, but it's perfectly feasible.
Thank you, Benoit. And Emily, looking across the gigantic, universal landscape, I mean, it's obviously really, really positive that you're building this huge new facility in the ways that you've described. And is that because, do you think that corporately you've noticed in your time there that there's now a new emphasis on the urgency for this, and that your studios, but actually your fellow studio that you're working with, that everyone has begun to recognize the necessity to make rapid change?
Very much so. I think, stages and studios are in high demand right now with just the amount of production, but being able to utilize and have a stage that utilizes green technology, clean energy, that sort of thing really, really helps our bottom line, especially when every single production is trying to be as green as possible and net zero carbon at the end of the day. I also think there's a need and urgency for all of these technologies, especially when we are shooting on location, these battery generators, clean power sources, whatever it may be. And I think to Lauren's point, the more green stages and the more technology, the more demand, the faster these technologies will evolve, the better they'll get, the more they'll be able to supply. But yes, the answer is yes.
Yes.
And I actually think competition in this realm is good, just because the more demand, hopefully the more supply in these innovative green technologies that can serve our industry.
And to both Laurent and Louise on this, what do you think about? I mean, there's an awful lot of talk, and I would be shocked if Universal weren't thinking about this for your new stages. There's an awful lot of talk and installation going on of virtual production rigs of LED. Now, obviously, there's other challenges with that in terms of heat to generate the power. But the fact is that virtual production allied LED technology to games technology seems, on the face of it, to mean that you can eradicate an awful lot of location shooting. Do you think? I mean, Louise, Laurent, do you think that this is a potentially positive thing for sustainability?
Louise, go first, please.
Yeah, I mean, if we can cut the number of people flying all over the place down and still get the same quality on screen, absolutely. Like you said, of course, it comes with its own cost. You've got to power those LED walls, but it's not the same cost as flying and then accommodating however many crew members you might take for however long to do that kind of in a practical sense. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, actually, Adrian, we always mention sound stages, but I probably forgot to mention that we built these sound stages on backlots. And backlots is one of the answers, that because you can build fake streets on backlots. And that means that you're not gonna be in cities. So you're still gonna have cars driving around, et cetera, but it spreads the problem, and therefore it helps solving it. So I think one of the things is, a huge number of backlots should pop in Europe, and that will help. And back to your point about LED walls and caves are very important as well, because they allow deco extension, if you will, and you can not only save money, not that much actually, but you in terms of saving energy, it's absolutely incredible. Instead of moving a crew of 50 to up to 100 people on location, with transportation and rooms and everything, you can just do the background plates, and that's a very little team, and then you would do everything inside the studio. So let's not hide ourselves in terms of well, the LED walls are not that sustainable, but they're much more sustainable than bringing everyone to location. So, Benoit is not completely happy with that. Lost some resistance.
But in fact, there is a huge bill of equipment for LED wall. I made a little assessment about a fixed installation. So, of course, you need LED tiles, you need servers, you need a data room, you need a wire, you need a lot of trackers, a lot of things. So there are new research are going to emerge to assess the sustainability benefits of virtual production, virtual set particularly, compared to conventional use scenario like location shooting or conventional shooting in studio. So it will give us fact and figure about the real benefit of virtual production. But I think it can help a lot. But we have to be very cautious about the bill of equipment and try to reduce it as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you. We're actually now out of time, but the thing is that, notwithstanding the challenges, I'm really pleased to hear from all of you about positive things that everyone's actually doing, building sustainable facilities, actually creating structures for energy that is going to allow us to reduce these horrible diesel generators, doing extraordinary new things. And I have to be optimistic and positive that this basket of things and the work that you're all actually doing, the research that you're doing, Benoit, the incredible emblematic kind of studio you're building, Emily, the work that you're doing with your studios and the work you're doing with the Grid project and working with productions is going to make a positive contribution to accelerating this change. So I have to wrap, but I wanted to thank you all very much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of our audiences, thank you. And we're going to move on now to our last panel of the day.
Okay. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.